Okay, Fungo Banner fans, we're real fired up to be back with another guest this week. Kirk Lupinski, head coach, Lower Columbia Community College. Thank you for taking time to come on the Fungo Banner and join the Fungo Banner family.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me and excited to be here and chat with you guys for a little bit tonight.
Absolutely. We're fired up to have you on. And right away, the hard hitting question: what's your favorite Fungo?
Definitely an easy one for me. I've been three fungos in a row on Devo, Devore Bats. So
Yeah,
local ish company, really enjoy it. 36, 36 and a half, really enjoy them. So it's an easy call for me right now, but have had many and uh, kind of enjoy them all really in their own way. So
absolutely. I think we also have a Devo sitting in our arsenal right now, so we can all agree with that one is good. But the one thing we really enjoy, everybody is where they came from, right? So the path that we've all taken in baseball, and talk us through your path. Really where you've been, uh, to where to get you to where you are in the head coach's job there at Lower Columbia, and then also just like the lessons that you learned along the way throughout your time growing through baseball.
really, really eclectic journey. I think I've taken, definitely a journeyman's role through coaching, not the probably traditional route a lot of people go, but I would say really one of the biggest lessons or even blessings of the journey, been around some good people. Just kind of wanted to be a learner, be a sponge. Really, really blessed to have a lot of good coaches at the opportunities that I've had. Grew up Klamath Falls, Oregon, small town. Uh, didn't know it at the time, but youth coach, cup of coffee, big leaguer, Harry Mock, who just set a really even keeled, good fundamental base. Played for some tough high school coaches, Joe Tacchini, Pete Whistler, kind of some legendary old school coaches down there. Really, really enjoyed the game of baseball. Was just an okay player, not a great player, to be honest. Average high school player, had some feel, had some IQ. Really coming out of high school was just going to be a student at Oregon State, not really going to pursue a big life in the game of baseball. And through kind of my high school coach, Joe Tacchini, actually got linked up with Marty Lees, who had coached years past Legion ball, and kind of said, "Hey, man, we need undergraduate staff. We need managers. Like, we need some kids that want to get into coaching. What do you got? Like, anybody?" And thankfully, Joe Tacchini, owe him a lot, said, "I got the guy for you, man." And guess what? He's already going to be a Beaver. He's headed there. So, really lucky break, to be honest, in that way. But that's really kind of how I got my start. Was a student manager, Oregon State, not a good player. Kind of joke, played my way into coaching in a lot of ways. But just really, really learned from Pat Bailey, Pat Casey, Marty Lees, Nate Yeski, just way, way better coaches. Of course, I wasn't even a real coach at that time, but just learned so much of how to prepare. What is discipline? What should you be coaching? So yeah, I'm very biased towards the Beavers in a lot of ways, but definitely as I've evolved, and moved on from the Beavers, really appreciate how those high level Division One staffs have to manage different expectations and personalities, and it's definitely an intense level to coach at. When I left Oregon State, I went to Chapman University. It was my first grad assist. Had a really good time down there. I wanted to do something different. Wanted to get in the sun, get out of the rain. Try a little bit. Tom Tereszchuk was the head coach down there. This is also when I grew up and learned there's a business side of coaching out there. So actually, when I'm down there, just situation where a coaching change happened, they ended up moving on from Coach T actually during the year. So I'm young green grad assist down here. Just okay, whoa, this is a lot to take in. After that season, end up getting an opportunity back at Oregon Tech, kind of get back on your feet. Like, holy cow, get a chance to coach again. Did what I thought was a good job with infielders and recruiting down there with Matt Miles at the time, head coach, and ran into Nate Pratt and Dimitri Koukouris, and that really kind of vaulted me to really where I am now. JJ Moskalo as well, kind of the Shemeketa Community College boys. of old. So a really tough group of coaches, and have since kind of just been kicking around the NWAC. Became an assistant at Lower Columbia after Shemeketa. Got a chance to coach Division I baseball a couple years at Washington State, and then when that staff moved on, got back at Lower Columbia assistant, and then you find yourself in the head coach's shoes. So crazy ride. Definitely though, what I grew up people saying you're going to get into coaching. I always felt like a player coach as a young player. Love doing this job. Really fun. Don't feel like you work, but actually you do because of working the long days and just what coaches do and put into it. But like I said, the biggest lesson is just definitely don't think you're the smartest guy in the room. Definitely pick up different things. I think a huge advantage I have now being back at Lower Columbia and being the head coach is I've been at NAI, I've been at Division III, I've been at Division I. You see that there's just a lot of differences in the type of experience, just where the right type of kids fit at. Also, just the minutia of transfer rules, D1 versus D2, semesters, quarters, making sure guys are eligible. Just the administrative side of coaching that no one tells you about when they get in. You want to coach hitters, you want to coach catchers, you want to coach pitchers, all that, but the business side and the administrative side, I would say the other biggest thing I've grown and learned, from being an assistant coach to a head coach. Definitely feel like I'm a much better assistant coach than I am a head coach still at this point. But definitely, like I said, blessed, love doing what I do, and obviously Lower Columbia just a great place to be.
Coach, do you feel like through that process, was it more asking the right questions, more, observing with your own eyes, or just, taking it all in? I mean, we talk about, the growth of success, and what the experience you've gone through to get where you are today, but we don't really talk about much about the fact that how does that process work? We want to be at the elite level, all of us do, but sometimes we just don't know what are the right steps. I think in business side of it, it's more just observation and getting your hands dirty and just asking the right questions. So in your experience, where did you see that helped your growth?
I would definitely agree with you to a high degree of, if you want to know something, don't be so stubborn to think that you can't, explore with someone else, ask the right question. The other side, though, and this is, Pat Casey, who I love this man to death and owe this guy a lot. That's a real tough coach right there. That's a guy who will tell you the truth. It can be a hard truth. It can be something you don't want to hear at the time. I really think one of the best things I learned was from Drew George, Braden Wells, and Ryan Gibson. When I was an undergrad guy, started to get more responsibility, think that I was more important than I was, bigger than I was, dude, when they're coaching you up, they're not criticizing you. They see something in you. They want you to be a good coach. They want you to do that. You cannot be sensitive. And I think learning that lesson was one of the biggest things that you talk about. Just holy cow. I just need to close my mouth, listen a little bit. Not always going to agree in the moment. That's human nature, of course. But besides working hard, which I mean, we'll get into even just LC and what we want to do, like hard work does earn things. And we definitely believe that getting your hands dirty, as you said, important, but being coachable. And sometimes you have to get a little uncomfortable, try something new, which is, I think it's hard for kids too, in terms of kids we coach and kids we're around.
That's so awesome to hear, because I know I wasn't ever going to coach until I realized I couldn't hit a fastball anymore when it got a little too fast, right? Like I think we all got to that point of, well, I'm riding the pine quite a bit here, and I know for me it was at Big Bend when I didn't get the playing time, right? And so I decided that point in time, I'm going to go sit next to the coaches. And I don't know if they thought I was trying to be that kid that's like, hey, put me in the game, right? But I was trying to listen to them the whole time. Okay, well, maybe this is my path in baseball is to start coaching, and just what some of those things that you might have, taken away from the game in this thing. I know there's lots of things that we're all head coaches here now, and like I'd have to points where I'm like, man, I wish I could kind of go back and be an assistant and to be better now. I mean, what are some of those things that you might have, looking back now that
Such a great question, and I was actually talking to Brian Valentine, lead assistant, our new recruiting coordinator. Just really great young coach. Really does things the right way. But we have a lot of these chops where we're talking about that, and we were talking about hitting at the time, and I was just like, man, if only I would have like really paid attention to what the pitchers were doing during BP and just what this rotation was like, or what the bigger picture of when I cared about, are we on time? Are we getting to the points we want to be in the swing? What are we working on in our approach? Now it's like, oh, what I thought I knew. Goodness sakes, I was just on the tip of the iceberg. So that's just one specific example, and I think it kind of can trickle down to some other things. The other side is, especially I tell guys this if they're going to seriously consider the small college or the junior college, is I didn't really pay attention at Oregon State what our strength program was doing. I didn't necessarily look at the support staff as, outside of my job supporting the baseball team, probably as closely as I should have as well. Because when you kind of understand those roles and what those people go through, and then I ended up getting a master's degree in exercise science, and it's just definitely become a huge part of my life in terms of love movement, teaching in that way. But if you want to be really valuable and you can do the weights, there's extra money for you to have. There's opportunities on staffs. There's a lot of head coaches that don't do that, or they kind of run a little more lax strength program, kind of just roll it out and say, kind of do this. So also just looking like, hey, you're probably not going to make $50,000 just coaching when you get into this. So have a skill set, be a little Swiss Army knife in some ways. And they didn't teach you that at Oregon State when you thought that you just get Confortos and Parker Berberettes and Jared Norrises and just all the pitchers that we had, Matt Boyd, go down the list, Greg Peavy, so many good. You're like, oh, wow. Then you get to Chapman University, Chemeketa, Lower Columbia. You're like, oh, these guys move a little bit different. There's some different things to learn also that way of get out and work with kids. That's, and I love facility coaching. I love individual instruction. I love that aspect, especially in the Northwest, how that's evolved, gives kids so many opportunities. But the balance of it's good to get out and base run. It's good to get in a team setting as well. And I hope kids in the Northwest don't lose that either.
Coach, let's talk about a little bit about some LC tradition, man. When I think of Red Devils baseball, I think of winning. You guys are phenomenal. What you guys do there. Talk about what are some of the things that have been kind of your secret sauce of your success throughout the years, and really, what does it mean to represent the name on the front of the jersey?
No doubt. Would not say that it's like a pressure-packed job. I would say it's more exciting to be at Lower Columbia. I really would, because it's an honor to hear from Coach Carnahan, to hear from Coach Kelly Smith, Eddie Smith, still a really close friend, Eric Lane, Rob Hippie, what he did. I mean, when you think of LC, of course you think of winning championships, but you just think of, wow, these are some of the best coaches in the Northwest. Coach Farrington, I don't want to leave anyone out. Jack Riley, even before Oregon State. It's that type of honor for me, is like, wow, hey, like we do have an expectation of we need to really, really take care of the details. And I think that's really when it's coach speak in a way, but it does really translate to young kids of just, guys, we can't worry about that. Like Lower Columbia has such a rich tradition. We're blessed by that. And yeah, it's just our job to make sure we're a part of it. If you think that's pressure, then don't come to our place. No, I mean, I think that's exciting. You want to work hard. You want to do, those types of things. Secret sauce, part of it is an administration that wants you to be successful and put some into it. I mean, and I'll say the unpopular opinion and call a spade and say there's a lot of places that don't invest. And it's, unfortunate. And it's tough for coaches. It really is. There's a lot of really great coaches. I won't, name drop of, hey, this guy's at this place, this guy's at that place. But there's some guys that I heavily respect that are doing a great job that if they were at Lower Columbia, they'd win 35 to 40 games. But, they're dealing with other situations, and we don't now. Also, I'm not going to apologize for that. Like, I appreciate that. Like, that's why I am blessed to work at Lower Columbia. Kirk Rowland, Chris Bailey. It's Nolan Wheeler, our VP, who's kind of really my boss, besides President Chris Bailey. So blessed in that way. But really what it comes down to is you have to play hard at Lower Columbia, because still in this area, I mean, Kelly Smith, those hard-nosed teams of the early 2000s and the mid 2000s, those are still legendary in this community. Definitely exciting to, try and be talked about with the '05 team or the 2010 team, Eric Lane, MVP. Little shout out to Eric Lane there. But I think that's where you got to get kids bought into. Just because you're at Lower Columbia, nothing's going to be handed to you. And that's, you insert any college program into that, you are going to have to get after it if you think you're going to be a winning player. And that's, I think, important, no matter if you're at Oregon, Oregon State, LSU, Tennessee. You do need to find that edge if you want to, like you say, be known as a program that plays at the end of the year, plays in those big games, gets in front of those big time coaches. But like I said, I think that's great. I love it. And if you think that that's pressure, then you're probably not in the right industry, because sports are tough. They can be sport, and that's why I love them.
Yeah, how much of that is kind of pressed upon guys before they get to you? I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit, talking recruiting later on, but is that a message that you send once guys are there, first day of fall ball, or are you really vetting, the players on the front end to make sure they're ready to work when they get to you?
Yeah, the best you can, and of course I'll never beat around the bush of, you want to have the best players possible. It does make winning games easier, especially if you have good coaching, of course. But we definitely recruit in a way, and I don't know how other people recruit. I'll never tell anyone how they should do it or what's right or wrong, but I know who I am. I know I can be a lot. I can be a big personality at times. I can annoy kids, get on their nerves, but that's Pat Casey in me. Like, that's why you're around that guy, where like, do the best you can, do it right, and that just is the way. And if it's not, I'm gonna bark at you a little bit. If we scare a guy off in recruiting with who we are, that you're gonna get coached, then you definitely shouldn't come here. Because, and by the way, I think it's gonna happen in a lot of places too, whether those coaches tell you that or not. So I do think kids should definitely go watch games, go watch the level you want to see, go see how good the players are there. There's high school kids don't know how good Division II baseball is. They don't know how good NAIA baseball is. They don't know how good junior college baseball really is. But I won't beat around the bush. Yeah, I love guys that throw hard and have a breaking ball or a second pitch. Catchers and shortstops and middle guys are highly valued, but we definitely care about the personality, care about the school side of things. Even though we're out of junior college, there's a trickle down effect to taking care of details all over, not just on the field. But of course, you miss on some personalities, and you can't get perfect robots. These are 17, 18-year-old kids that you're getting, and they're all shapes and sizes and coming from different backgrounds. But yeah, I want to make sure that we get guys that just we're up front with and know what they're getting into. And we also, we can talk a little more on this later, but just even from the strength side of things with the plan that we run, pretty rigorous on the strength and conditioning side. If you're lazy, you're not going to have a fun time with me. So I think it is important to make sure kids know just who they're playing for, and you're not going to love them every time, but you should respect your coaches when you go in.
Yeah, and I think, we've delved deep enough into this recruiting side. I might as well stay on it. But, I guess, what are some of the things you kind of look on the front end? I love the comment you made about, guys going out and watching, the level of play. I think people don't understand, and there's a lot of misconceptions and coaches out there that all they know is their experience, right, at junior college or at Division II or whatever it is, and that's all they have to speak of. And I think things change throughout the years, and the old school JUCO that maybe I was a part of and the others were a part of is different now. It's not just the bad grade guy that needs to figure his life out. Like, there's a lot of good players that have, academic dreams that still go on there. But how are you vetting these things on the front end when you're, whether watching an event or having a sit down with a kid? What are the specific things that you're looking for? Talking to a high school coach, what questions are you asking to really know if a player fits to what you're looking for or can handle that grind and stuff that you're working on?
No, absolutely. It's a great question, and I think Brian Valentine would agree with me if he was also on here. Is I like to have a wide range of seeing kids and their skill set and their personality. I try and remind myself, and we can do this early. Like, we're not D1 guys that have to make a decision on 5 swings after taking a 5-hour flight to catch a game in Kansas in wind and snow. We get to have a little more of a process with these kids, which I do enjoy about the small college experience and the recruiting experience. But watch a kid in an event, watch a kid actually play a game, though. Still call it old school, call it whatnot. Yeah, I want to see you fail. I want to see how you talk to your parents when you leave the yard after a tough day. I want to see if it's just about you. Is it about you? Or is it about winning? Is it about, all those types of things that, of course, you can't always see or know just every guy you see. Of course not. But I think that's definitely huge. And then I like just circle up how, and just like you do, coach, and all you coaches, just the network you get to have in the Northwest. It's a special place to coach, and a lot of great men doing it. There's information being shared out there. So, and I tell this to kids all the time, whether I speak at events or whatnot, you really do not know. And you have no idea who's going to flip me a call, who you wouldn't even have a clue who they are. Ex Beavers, ex players, friends of friends that know you do this, and they want to flip you a name. So do it the right way. And I think that's the last thing, that when you talk about, watching kids and are you turned on, are you turned off, guys that don't have an interest in playing hard and have kind of lost that little bit of get after the other team, which can be tough in showcase baseball, can be tough in sort of the nature of how things are done in terms of exposure and facilities and whatnot. And like I said earlier, that I'm not by any means knocking or trying to downgrade anything those guys are doing for kids. But when a guy gets to college, you don't beat around the bush. It's about beating the other team. It's about trying to be the best you can possibly be each day. It's not always going to be a perfect version, but you definitely want to be the best you can be. And college is about getting after the other team. And you can coach that into kids. You can remind them of that. Of course, it's always, every kid's got a degree of that. It's not like, dude, you're just lost and can never learn to be more competitive. But it really fires me up when I see a kid that, like, yeah, that dude likes playing. That kid loves baseball. He's not doing it because his parents made him. He's not doing it because he's good at it, so he's expected to do it, or he's had this vision of, how his process should go or his life. You're like, man, that dude's got a skill set. He's an athlete. He likes to play. Because college baseball, there's days where if you don't like playing, the game can drag you down a little bit. It's just a long season. You got to go hard. You got to train a certain way. So really, really enjoying the game. I love to see that, and that stands out to me. Getting foul balls stands out to me. Picking up your teammate after a punch out stands out to me. So, but I'll never, and Jim Horner, Dan Spencer, we talk about this all the time at WSU. Also, man, firm fastballs, good sliders. You do want to try and find skill sets and abilities, but there can be a will over skill. And when you talk about small college baseball and player development, where really that is what the environment is, the ability to get better. I've seen so many kids that people passed on or didn't think had it, that worked at a small college and turned into really nice players. So that's kind of the other art side of the recruiting evaluation is certain coaches like body type, certain coaches like moves, certain coaches like the look of a player. Kind of the lottery sometimes, but that's definitely a part that if you are gonna, try and put together a successful class, you're gonna want to find some of those pieces that you value higher than other people for whatever reason that is. Could be grit, could be defense. For me, it's defense in a lot of ways. Pitching and defense will still win you a ton of ball games.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think the heavy hitter on this is it's not something we really talk about, but like, to what end do you overlook some of the character flaws if the guy has like those talents? I mean, especially being at a junior college where there's maybe a little bit lower risk, right? It's 2 years. You can obviously just say no if it doesn't work out. But, is there a point where you overlook some flaws and think that, okay, based on our system, our discipline, some of the things that we can do, we feel like we can clean some of this guy's character stuff and overcome some of that because of how talented he is. Does some of that come into play for you there?
No, it does, and we've all been guilty of being on the right side and the wrong side of that. And I'll never, I will definitely admit that taking a chance on a guy that just wasn't the right move, and then also guys that you help change their lives and are some of the most powerful guys you ever coach. So part of that for me too is some discernment of the kid's situation, trying to put myself in the kid's shoes. I'm so happy there wasn't social media and cameras everywhere and just the ability to see every mistake I ever made in my life. Like so many of them, which turn us into the people we are. But it's hey kids, it's a different ball game now too. So also you just have to adapt and understand the time you're in. But for me, it's that discernment of will this really derail the most important thing and really what Lower Columbia has, which is that culture of getting kids to buy into punching that ticket every day, and they will get an opportunity at that piece of that pie. When you start bringing in kids that get the special set of rules and start not doing it or having to do it like the other guys, of course it can be a problem. um, Typically you do see it stereotypically, the higher velocity fastball type arms, a position that can really make a high end impact, while also maybe not having as much collateral damage as if you had a catcher that couldn't talk to his teammates per se. But I also am not afraid to remove a guy from a team and won't apologize for looking out for the welfare of our other kids because like I said earlier, I can be a lot. I can have high expectations, but I will definitely treat you fair. And that gets me rubbed the wrong way when kids don't understand, how disrespectful that kind of is to your teammates too. So I'm probably on the end of addition by subtraction has worked for me more than really trying to take a flyer on what looks to be a bad human being. I just think when you preach hard work and you want to be able to trust guys, why does it always happen that it's that guy up 3-2, bases loaded, or he's on the mound with the chance to either walk the guy or punch the guy out? It's crazy how this game knows and just can hunt guys out in that way. And I think about that. That's not fair to the club. So it's tough, and we're all imperfect, especially as head coaches when we do that. But yeah, you look at it, but I think it's the discernment of just, is this the right move for whatever team you have? And every personality of team is going to evolve on a year-to-year basis.
Coach, how do you go about, with that with your staff? You each going to have a different vision of a kid, maybe certain things that certain guys are going to like, and we don't talk about it much, but the fact of maybe even that high school coach that's just in this first year coming up here at the end of February, he's going to be starting the spring season. He's still trying to look for those guys to be, on his staff and have that same vision. And then even correlating that within the volunteer coaches that, you guys were able to bring into the college level. So how do you make that clear?
Great question. And for me and what I've been around, and Eddie Smith for sure is the master of this. Have meetings, have clear expectations, really, have some fundamental things that need to happen. But like I said, just really in my journey, I think the blessing of what I was able to do was also kind of go out and coach and flourish and fail and learn some things as an assistant coach. And that's really what I've wanted to do with coaches that I've had, in my, brief tenure as a head coach. So I think that's important to let guys be who they are, but also understand, there's a certain way that we talk to players. There's a certain, separation between the player, the coach, not the old school do what I tell you to do because I tell you to do it per se, but just you can't be one of the guys either. I mean, you got to have some separation of a leadership role. Uh, in terms of sharing vision, I think it needs to be a person that, and this can be tough because we all have ulterior motives and we all want to grow in this game. Finding the right mix of getting those coaches what they need as a part of your staff, the experience of your staff, the growth that they need or want to have as a coach. But also, hey, the beauty of coaches is, hey, they need to just facilitate and just grow the team, continue to push the vision of the team. But for me, having been an assistant coach in so many roles, I always appreciated the ability to have an opinion, the ability to feel like I could say something in a meeting, whether that went down, whether it was said, "Oh, wow, yeah, okay, actually, that really was kind of a stupid idea. Didn't think of it that way. This is a much better way to do it." I think that's what's huge on a staff, and has worked well just with guys I've worked with and for, because then there's that investment on their side. You don't want selfish assistant coaches that aren't invested in players or invested in what the organization is trying to do. But I'm not also saying, and you talk about, volunteer guys, absolutely guys need to be taking care of their families. Absolutely there needs to be the ability to move through the industry, based on what type of experience you want and those opportunities. So, happy that that went through. Really hoping they just add a fifth coach too, because we have like 12 football coaches. So I can say that now that I'm a junior college coach in Washington with no repercussions. It just seems like it could be done. And I hope for a lot of, good young coaches or old coaches, just good coaches in general, creates opportunities that'll trickle down to all levels for sure.